So now that we understand some of the core concepts of weight bending, let's take a look at how to actually apply weights inside of Cinema 4D. So if you've got your character applied to the binding tab of the character object, you'll see that you have the weight tag and the skin deformer, which means your character is just about ready to be weighted. Now in this example, I've actually removed all of the auto weighting so we can better see the changes in the weights as I'm applying them. Now there's two methods to applying weights inside of Cinema. You can either do it by painting with the weight paint tool, or you can use selections, either edge, point, or polygon selections to apply your weights. Let's take a look at how to use selections to apply weights. So what I'm going to do is I'm in my edge mode here, and I'm going to choose select loop selection. Now when you're painting by selections, this is actually really useful because you can quickly paint in a block of your mesh with just a couple of clicks. You can see I just did two loop selections, one at the top and the bottom, and then I used a fill selection to select everything between them. Now if I were to select my left hip joint and click apply, you can see that it's filled in this entire area. It's a lot easier than trying to navigate in here and paint each of these points all the way around the leg. It takes a little while. So this is really great for when you want to quickly block in your values. Now the nice thing is I can continue and I'll select this loop, and this loop should really be blended between the hip and the knee. So I'm going to select both of them inside of the weights manager here. And with my mode set to abs and the strength set to 100%, because I have two joints selected, it's going to actually divide this by 2, and each joint will get 50%. So I click apply, and sure enough, you can see in the heads up display here, I'll try to move it out of the way so you can see a little bit better, but it says 50-50, which is exactly what I wanted. And then I can just continue down the leg and select these two loops, fill between them, and with just my knee selected, I'll click apply. So this is sort of how I block in weights. I usually start with just hard absolute values like 100%, and I block them in on each joint as I see it. And I don't like to blend any more than between two joints, so a 50-50 blend kind of thing. And I see where that gets me, how the leg will deform based on just those weights, and then I'll go in and paint with the weight paint tool to sort of finesse and fine-tune some of those values. So let's quickly just continue down here. So now we're working on the ankle joint, and I'm going to select all the way until this loop, fill between, select the ankle, click apply. Now for this loop here, we're going to have it blend between the ankle and the ball of the foot. So we'll select both those joints, click apply. Now we'll continue on. I'll select this joint, select the rest of the foot, and apply it to the ball. So now if I switch into animate mode, which you should be in when you're painting your weights with the character object, because otherwise you can't grab a controller and move it to see how your deformations are looking. But you can see that in just a minute or so, we've already defined pretty much all the weights for our character. Now there's some areas where we could try to fine-tune stuff a little bit. And to see this better, it's good to go into the display options and turn on lines for whatever mode you're using. So in this case, since I'm using this top value, I'm going to switch to the one with lines, and I can see it here. And if your character's texture is making it difficult to see it, you can also go into the options menu and turn off textures. So now you get just a basically the base color of your object and the lines, so you can really see how those edges and stuff are deforming. Now if you wanted to copy the weights from, say, your left leg to your right leg, you can do this inside of the weights manager. One of the downsides to using the selection method is that it doesn't work symmetrically. So I have to do both sets of legs unless I do some mirroring inside of the weights manager. So you can do this by selecting a joint that has the weights you want to mirror, in this case my left hip. Choose copy, select the joint you want to receive the weights, choose Replace, and flip X. Now you can see it's flipped it to my right side. Now I use flip X because the YZ plane is my mirror plane or my center line. So I need to go from X plus to X minus. So that's why I'm flipping on X. If your character is oriented in a different way, you may need to use flip Z or flip Y. So that's a cool way to do it, but it'd be a real pain to have to go one by one and do those steps. So you can actually perform this on multiple joints at once. So for instance, if I select all of my leg joints here, choose Copy, I can select all of my right leg joints, choose Replace, and flip X. And you can see it's worked just fine. Now, one thing to note though is that you need to make sure the number of joints that you're copying from and pasting to match, and you also want to make sure that the order of the joints matches. Otherwise, if my right ankle was above my knee, it would actually receive the weights from the knee joint from my left knee. So you want to make sure that the number of joints match and the order of the joints match when you're doing this. Now, one other thing to be aware of when you're using this method is that if you happen to be in one of the component modes like points, edges, or polygons, and you try to, you want to copy from the left tip to the right. Well, if I have this selected here like this, and I choose Copy, and then I go to my right joint and choose Replace, you can see it's only done what is selected. So this is useful if you only need to flip a really small portion of the weights, but if you want to flip the entire weights, it's best to make sure you have nothing selected or that you're in the model mode when you are copying and pasting those joint weights. In addition to the copy and replace method, you could also select all the joints you want to mirror across. So I'm going to select the left leg component, shift all the way down to the right ball, and you can see I've got them all selected. And I can just click and choose Auto Mirror, and it's automatically mirrored from the left to the right. The last thing you need to be aware of when you are working with the selections is that when you paste weights onto a joint that already has weights, it's not going to normalize automatically. So working this way could potentially lead to problems where you're over 100% or under 100%. So whenever you're mirroring across using when you've used the copy replace method, you want to double check in the weights tab to make sure that all your weights are normalized, and you can tell by the red cell color here. Unfortunately, you need to be aware of when you're weight painting inside of the weights manager here using selections.